Well, when I was a kid, both my parents were artists. I grew up in this kind of environment, this kind of family. And my father worked for Disney in the early days. He worked for Esquire. Very accomplished guy. My mother was a fashion illustrator. And I figured, well, these guys are just a little too bohemian for me. So I think I'm going to maybe be an attorney. I get to high school. I find out I can do this. I can just do this. The girls like this. It's a done deal. My hormones sealed my fate.
The first thing to put Bryan on the map were his amazing beach scenes.
I would take giant canvases, put them on the floor, and I would paint right on the floor. And then I'd go back with little tiny squeeze bottles filled with paint, different color paint, and I'd paint above it. So it actually, nothing was touching the canvas at all. And it came out very loose and very free, and it was like an overhead beach scene. It was almost a God's eye view, where you saw the birds coming down, and the people playing, and the volleyball players, and the surfers. They were exciting, and they were wonderful, and nobody had done anything like this before.
Bryan was recently commissioned by Wayne Family Enterprises to create images of John Wayne. You won't find these images in any of the studio footage. Bryan's images of John Wayne are purely from his own imagination.
They were painted on large sheets of aluminum, so the bridles are ground off, so they're shiny. I'll tell you an interesting story, though. When John Wayne was a kid, he had an Airedale, like my Airedale, Astro. The Airedale's name was Duke, and he would take Duke down to the fire station with him, and the firemen all knew Duke, but they didn't know John. It was Marion Morrison at the time. So they used to call the dog Little Duke, and they would call him Big Duke. So when I was down at Wayne Enterprises, I was telling them I have an Airedale named Astro. From that time forward, I became Big Astro.
Bryan works with aluminum canvas in a way that no other artist does.
You can take the stuff, you can buff it, you can rub it, you can do fantastic things to it. Make it shine when you walk by it. It does things, it'll reach out and grab you. It's a new medium for me, and I think for most people, because what I do is I apply normal subject matter to it. Like painting a woman on aluminum, you're starting with something that's very cold and bringing in something that's warm to it, and the dichotomy is just wonderful. You get this great bounce. But I like aluminum because the stuff is just wonderful. You can grind it, you can polish it, you can rub it, you can do it, anything you want to the stuff. It's virtually bulletproof, and it makes magical things because it changes as you walk by. The Western art right now is an enormous passion for me. I started doing it, I've actually been doing it for a long time, but I started doing it seriously a couple of years ago, when I found I could paint horses. I've always liked to paint horses anyway, but to make horses have magic is something different entirely. I painted George W. Bush a couple years ago, and it was a very interesting process because what I did, as opposed to just painting a sitting president, I put him in with Lincoln. Now when you do this, it no longer becomes a picture of the president, it becomes history.
But perhaps what this artist is most well known for is his ability to make a subject appear in a dreamlike setting. For several years, Bryan has created special portraits called I Can Make Dreams Come True, wherein he paints an individual in the company of famous people who share a fondness or appreciation of something special.
It's a memory that you can keep forever. You can't get it anywhere else. A great deal of what I do is commission work. Companies come to me looking for ways to think different than their art departments. A lot of the big companies come to me, and I'll tell you what, they have art departments with guys that came out of Disney, Hanna-Barbera, and they're all terrific artists. But what do they want me for? Because they need a fresh view, and that's one of the ways that I look at things. I've worked with BMW, Porsche, Bentley, RJ Reynolds, Coca-Cola. I've worked with most of the big corporations throughout the world. In and Out has got to be one of the most interesting accomplishments I ever did. how it happened was Rich Schneider, a very good friend of mine, and one of the founders of In-N-Out, came to me one day, oh, this has got to be 15 years ago at least, and said, Michael, I want to create something really good on the t-shirts. And I said, well, I don't, you really, because you got truck drivers. He said, no, I want to give them something really great. So I said, okay. And we sat down and they came up with an image for In-N-Out, and they sold way more shirts than they ever did before. And then I did it the year after and the year after. And the numbers kept going up and up and up. What's funny is I've painted presidents, I've painted princes, I've done the Olympics, I've done Grand Prix. Everybody knows me as the hamburger guy. That will be my legacy. Thank you, In-N-Out.